I have a confession to make. I really do like metal clarinets. I like the pure core of the sound and resonance that I get, the feedback that I get when I play them. And, you know, 99.9% of metal clarinets were made in the 1920s, 30s, 40s. Back when metal was made really well. And I think there's an argument to be made here of why I don't like most modern saxophones, specifically alto saxophones. They're heavier horns, but yet they're not dense. They don't really resonate well. I feel like they're toys when I play them. I can't sing into them. And I think I can make a point here with clarinets. In my 10R13 comparison video, I talk about, I show some differences between the external dimensions of some R13s, lighter horns, heavier horns. And so I want to show you a horn that is absolutely too light. The density is just not there. I'm going to start with the lightest horn that I like. This is a 72,000. The early 70,000 horns are lighter horns, and they get to be the walls got much thicker. This is a really great horn. It's very French in a lot of good ways. It's still very American. The focus from a distance. This is probably the most focused horn I've ever heard from a distance. It just keeps that core of the sound. And the throat tones are really clean. That B flat is ridiculous. So this is, by the time you get to the mid to late 80,000s, the horns are much heavier, much darker in my opinion. And this is just about the heaviest horn I like. I do also like, I do have a horn that's a little heavier than this. Almost reminds me of a Selmer recital. It's really heavy, but you just hear more mass there. Really, I have more to work with, but it's not necessarily as focused. I don't necessarily like it less. It depends on the hall. It depends on the piece. It depends on the mouthpiece. Listen to the throat tones. They're not quite as clear, but they might be a little more in tune. So another kind of splitting the difference, you have an early 100,000, and really early 100,000s are really balanced horns. And I hear both. I hear the highs of the 70,000, the focus of the 70,000, the depth of the late 80,000. It doesn't feel fragile. Sometimes the 70,000 can feel a little fragile. Sometimes the 80,000 can feel a little immovable. Again, it depends on the hall. This one's right in the middle. Throat tones are really in tune. But they might be missing something from the last two. So the last one I have here is a Buffet Elite. This is a very interesting horn. This octave mech controls down here to open up a vent there. gold-plated keys, posts. But the real interesting thing, check out the barrel. Check this out. These are carbon fiber rings. They're not ringless like a Bakun, but I want you to check out just how this barrel is so much bigger. The R13 is so much wider that it literally it looks ridiculous on it. That's how skinny this horn is, and it's too skinny. The density is just not enough. This horn feels like a toy when I'm playing it. And all of a sudden I've stopped pushing. I've stopped pushing because it's kind of like a gas pedal. There has to be some resistance. And that resistance depends. It depends on the context. It depends on the person. But this is just too light. It's so light, you see the mouthpieces sticking out. The mouthpiece is wider than the horn itself. And so, like, if I'm playing Beethoven 6 in an orchestra, it's like I'm walking on eggshells. I'm afraid. It feels like I'm always going to squeak. There's just not enough horn here. And it's ironic because sometimes I play a heavy horn, a horn that's too heavy, like a Tosca, or a modern R13 Prestige is too heavy, or a Selmer recital, and I start to get palate issues. Well, I'm getting palate issues when the horn is way too light. For the same reason, I can't naturally just sing into the horn. If I compare with that 72,000, which is still a really light horn, something's going to happen here. What happens is the same thing that happens when a lot of saxophone players jump back to clarinet. It feels like they're hitting a brick wall because the resistance of clarinet is so much greater. But it's not. Clarinet is not necessarily such a resistant instrument. It's just the instrument has a natural resistance to work with your air and to work with your voicing, to achieve multiple tones, it's a dynamic sound. And so even though you just heard me play the 72,000 right at the beginning, I'm going to struggle to play it a little bit because that Elite was just too easy. And I sound like a sax player jumping back to clarinet. Give me a second, I'll get back used to it. There, I just relaxed, and paradoxically, by relaxing, I just pushed a little more in a good way. So if I do a little bit of Beethoven 6. It's still really light, it's still really easy, but it's projecting. I can push it to the point that this starts to relax. So this comes down to, again, modern saxophones are heavier, but yet they feel lighter. Modern flutes that aren't necessarily double wall, they feel to a lot of players like it's just paper. They're blowing into paper. There's not enough substance. Just because it's heavy doesn't mean the substance, doesn't mean the resonance is there. So this goes to my big theory that density is everything. Density of vintage rubber, Chevelle rubber, is greater. It's more dense than plastic. It's part of the reason it resonates better. Density of old grenadilla wood. One of my friends makes barrels, and he made me a barrel out of lead wood, which is about 7% denser than modern Impingo grenadilla wood. And guess what? It plays a lot like 1960s or earlier grenadilla wood. That's interesting. Density of reed. Man, you can hear so many people talking about how the density of old Moray reeds or old Van Doren reeds. The cane was denser. Today we need to play reeds that are thicker, have thicker heels. They're stronger reeds to make up for the fact that we don't have enough density, because when you don't have density, you need more quantity to make up for it. Or you have something that you just don't really sing. It's not really vocal. This is a machine. I want you to compare, if I play just a little bit of Scott McAllister Black Dog on this Elite, it's going to sound like I'm playing Cahuzac. It's going to sound like I'm playing Petite Piece by Debussy, you know. sounds like, because it can't achieve that, because this achieves one type of tone, and it doesn't let me, the player, change that. It's too efficient. It is over-engineered. It is too easy. And I think if I were to play this over the course of a year, my air support would get affected. That's actually what happened to me when I was playing a Mark VI alto for a while. Now I play an SBA alto. I played a Mark VI alto for a while, and I felt like my air support on clarinet would get worse and worse and worse. Because there is a magic density, and it's different for every person. It's different for every mouthpiece, every reed, every hall, every context, every environment, every job. But there is a point where the density allows you to push more, but you're actually relaxing when you're pushing more. Again, most clarinets today are too heavy. You have to work too hard. Most saxophones today, yeah, they're heavy, but the density isn't there, and they don't really fill up the horns. And I hear classical alto players all the time, and they're not really filling up the horn. They're not really singing into the horn. They're playing at the horn. They're not actually playing the horn. And I hear so many clarinet players today that are digging into the ground with their tone. They're not soaring into the audience. Going back to metal clarinets, there's something about old metal, say in metal, even ligatures. Good metal versus, beginning band, first ligature you ever get, the two-screw ligature that's made out of pot metal. Why is it bad? Is it the design? Maybe. Is it the quality and the density of the metal? I think absolutely. And the sad part is, you can spend a lot of money getting something really well designed, really efficient. From a mechanical standpoint, just a dream. But does it allow your artistry to come through? Is it naturally opposing your air in an efficient and dynamic way? And I think, part of the secret to that comes down to density.